Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Roseanne Hassett. I'm the Executive Director of the American Civil Defense Association. Before we begin, I am obligated to share our disclaimer. Nothing in this presentation should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The opinions of the viewers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of TACDA. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The format tonight is informal. We like to allow questions on the fly so that the answers will be in context. Feel free to also use the chat feature and we'll do our best to get those questions answered as they come up. Tonight, our topic is emergency communication, and our presenter is Bryan Stinson. A little bit about Bryan. Bryan is currently an emergency preparedness and community outreach specialist with the Utah Division of Emergency Management and Be Ready Utah. Way before then, his first degree was in media arts, which led to a 9-year stint working in Utah's film industry. In 2007, he took a CERT course in his neighborhood and fell in love with helping people prepare for emergencies. He has been researching and teaching emergency preparedness ever since. In 2012, he graduated with a Master of Science degree in leadership with an emphasis in disaster preparedness. Bryan now produces the social media and other preparedness videos for Be Ready Utah, which combines his love of photography and video production with emergency preparedness. It can be said that every conversation he has with people always ends up devolving into emergency preparedness. His reply, anytime is a good time to talk about emergency preparedness. So with that, I'll turn the time over to you, Bryan.
Okay, thanks again for having me. I apologize a little bit. I think I'm coming down with a little something, but I don't think you can get sick through video, so we should all be safe. One thing I'd like to do before we get started, actually, my throat sounds even a little worse than it did an hour ago.
No.
Before we get started, I'm going to send out in the chat our emergency communication brochure. I just sent that now. If you want to open that up, it's kind of a little bit of an outline of what we're going to be talking about today. So feel free to open that out and then open that up. Then I'm also posting in it a subscription to the Be Ready Utah monthly newsletter. If you'd like, you can click on that and you can sign up, and we just send out one email a month about a different aspect of emergency preparedness from Be Ready Utah. That's all we do. We don't send you any solicitations of anything else. If I did that, I'd get in trouble because we're a government institution. So yeah, I don't send you anything else. That being said, let us go ahead and get started. If you do have questions, please put them in the chat. And then, Roseanne, if you could just let me know, because I won't be able to see the chat. If you could just let me know if you have any questions, that would be great. All right. So today we are talking about emergency communication. First things first. What is communications? I remember in college, I took some communications classes. There was all sorts of theories about defining it. There was arrows about receiving and giving and feedback and all sorts of diagrams. But for simplicity, we're just going to talk about it's just giving and receiving information. I speak to you. You hear what I say, and vice versa. Remember that information is power. Fear often comes from the unknown. The more we know about the situation we're facing, the more confident we'll be that we can overcome it. Accurate information allows you to make informed decisions. Now, you may not always have all the information that you would like to have before you need to act, but the more information you have, the better it will be. How can communication be affected in an emergency? Here, if you guys want to quickly turn on your microphones, throw out some ideas of how communications could be affected. Well, give us about 30 seconds of discussion here. Anybody have any ideas?
The cell phones can go out, right?
Okay. Yeah, phones might go out. That's kind of what we think of as our primary source of communication in what we call blue sky days when things are normal. They could go out. They may not go out, but there's a good possibility they could. Any other ideas?
Family radio.
Radio, okay. A lot of people will probably be using family radios and they could be completely congested. Another thought with that, maybe you don't know how to use it. You don't know where you put it, or maybe the batteries are dead. Maybe you don't know the limitations of the FRS family service radios, and you think, well, I'll be able to communicate all over the city because it says 25-mile range, but that's line of sight. One thing to remember is usually within the city, you have less than 1 mile of range with those. Any other thoughts of how communication can be affected?
During Hurricane Helene, our internet service went out, obviously, and not having email or texts was a tremendous hindrance.
Okay, yeah, all of our normal means of communications electronically using technology, many of those could be affected. All right, let's move on. So you could have no power, you might have no time. Maybe I don't have time to charge my phone. We talked about phone lines being down or broken, cell towers being jammed, roads being impassable. That face-to-face communication, you might not be able to go over the river and through the woods to get to grandma's house and see how she's doing. Phone lines clogged, we talked about that. Radio, TV, and maybe even cable could be down. Another one to think about, maybe even personally, to remember the pictures of 9/11, people coming out of the ground zero area, and they were looking like ghosts because they were covered head to toe with that white dust. Their eyes, their ears, their mouths were all full of that dust, and many of them had trouble speaking or hearing. You could have a personal loss of sight, hearing, and speech. That's not a technology breakdown. That's just personally, your personal means of communication could be hampered. Okay, what kind of information do you need during an emergency? Well, starting off, you probably want to know what's the nature of the emergency, what's going on. You wake up in the middle of the night, there's a loud rumbling sound. Could it be an earthquake, or maybe is it the burrito that your spouse had before dinner? Maybe how bad, the severity, how bad is the emergency? Is it something that I need to even worry about? Areas affected. Where is it happening? Is it happening close to me? Is it happening where I live? Is it happening far away? What about the estimated duration? How long is this expected to last? Now, some things like hurricanes, they can get an idea. Now, I don't remember very many hurricanes happening here in Utah, but some disasters you can estimate duration. I know today we're supposed to have a snowstorm here in Utah that's expected to go through Friday. Other ones, you may not know how long it's going to last. Things like, I don't know if anybody's ever been through a pandemic. We didn't know how long that was going to last. What about things like evacuate or shelter in place? Should I stay or should I go now? That reminds me of a cheesy 80s song. But anyway, yeah. What instructions am I getting? Do I need to stay where I am, or are they saying we need to go? Is there any other additional instructions that you're getting from authorities? They might have answers to some of the previous questions. How about you need to know the status of your family members? How and where is everybody? After you know about your family members, you probably need to check on your neighbors as well. In your community, it's important that we all pull together and help out each other. I know a lot of times in snowstorms, there's power outages. It's a good thing to go check on those around you, especially the elderly or those that have access and functional needs. Okay, so that's some of the things we want to find out. Now, where do we get that information from? What are where do we get that information? What are the goods and bads of those different sources of information? Think about things like power source for that. How much time does it take to set up? How much knowledge do I need to be able to use that source of information? How available is it? Is there going to be communication? Everything has its benefits and its drawbacks. Another thing to think about is not just getting information, but is it accurate information? When you're gathering information, cross-reference that from different sources to make sure you're not just getting one person or one point of view, one person's bias or another point of view. Oftentimes, remember the first report, and this a lot of times goes for your local news as well as national news, or even just rumors from around the community. The first report's not complete or accurate. So other sources of information, EAS, what is it? The EAS, here's a hint. The EAS, what is that? It is the emergency alert system. That's replaced. I remember as a kid, we had the EBS, the emergency broadcasting system. That was kind of a leftover from the Cold War. The president used that for a national emergency. But the EAS, it can be used locally. It can be done statewide. It can be done by a county. Usually the EAS, it is done statewide. Here in Utah, KSL is the state's primary source for sending that information to. They're under KSL 1160 AM, 1027 FM. They're under contract with the state. The state sends them the emergency alerts. KSL then sends it to all the other radio stations. So KSL may get it first, but only first for not very long, because they're required to send it out to all the other radio stations. But that just means that the state only has to send it one place. EAS, you're listening to Hogan's Heroes or something, Matlock, and you get that beep, 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 sound that comes across the TV. Sometimes they even use that for Amber Alerts. And you may have received something about that recently for a weather alert. Welcome to the Be Ready Buzz. A radio is a great source of information in an emergency. All radio and television stations are required to broadcast alerts in the event of an emergency situation. It's the Emergency Alert System, or EAS. This is a reliable source of emergency information. And if an alert goes out, you need to follow those directions immediately. But what do you do if the power's out and you forgot to rotate the radio batteries in your disaster supply kit? Oops. Don't forget, you always have a working radio in the car. Oh yeah. Now, prepare and share what you learned about radios in an emergency with someone you care about. Thanks for joining us on the Be Ready Buzz. Oh yeah, another great video from the Be Ready Buzz. I like that guy, he's really smart. Anyway, next one we're going to talk about is WEA, or known as WEA. What's that one? Here's a little hint. Okay, the WEA is wireless emergency alerts. If you have a smartphone, you already get them. I usually see these Amber Alerts. That's the first time I heard it, but they can also be used for sending out emergency alerts for anything else. The way this works is a county or the state sends out the alerts to specific radio or specific cell phone towers, and anybody within the shadow of that cell phone tower will get the alert. So they can be very targeted. If you're not within the shadow of that cell phone tower, you're not going to get the alert. So yeah, it's very localized. It's a great system. You do not have to sign up for that one. Now, what about the NOAA and tone alert radio? Excuse me. What is that? Well, that's put out by the National Weather Service and NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and that can go through. It's not just AM/FM radio. You have to have a specific NOAA weather radio. There's 7 channels. Most of Utah, I think, is channel 7, but the best way to find out which channel is the appropriate one for you, usually it's the one that has the clearest signal. Excuse me. And then listen to it to make sure that that is for your area. You can turn it on. It's just a kind of a robotic voice that is just always telling you what the weather is. If you have a tone alert radio, it's kind of a special weather radio. You can put it into a snooze mode, and it'll automatically turn the radio on if there's a special emergency alert that comes out. That's a nice thing for, if you're sleeping or something like that, you're probably not going to leave your radio on all night and day. Watch, advisory, and warning. These are things it's important to know the difference of what these are. Watch means be prepared. It's usually issued well in advance of a public, well in advance to alert the public of the possibility of a particular hazard like tornado watch, flash flood watch. Advisory means to be aware. It's issued for weather that causes significant inconveniences, and if caution is not exercised, could lead to life-threatening situations. A lot of times it's not something that you need to be, oh no, advisory. Usually things we get for that one are like heat advisory, winter weather advisory, wind chill advisory. It's be aware that something is going on so that you can take the appropriate actions. And the last one, a warning, take immediate action. Tornado warning, flash flood warning, these are happening right now. Usually the way I've seen watch and warning, the way to remember them is like, let's say theoretically you had a chocolate chip cookie watch. If you had flour and sugar and butter and chocolate chips, that would be a chocolate chip cookie watch. They're all just separate ingredients. Everything is there for this situation to happen, but there are no chocolate chip cookies right now. Now, chocolate chip cookie warning would be you just open up the oven and pull them out. There's the chocolate chip cookies right there. So that's the difference between a watch and a warning. Another source of information, it's a good idea to follow state, county, city, law enforcement, fire rescue, and other emergency response and management authorities in your area. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, excuse me. Follow hashtags for specific things. Like just a few days ago, there was a hashtag for winter storm here in Utah. And that was a really popular hashtag during the winter storm we had last week. One thing to think about is know your sources on this. Believe it or not, there's a lot of misinformation and bad information on social media. So when I was talking about check other sources, do that before you act on information that you get from some person on social media. In fact, if you remember in 2020, there was the Magna earthquake. If any of you felt that or remember that, that was right at the beginning of COVID. And one of my responsibilities here at the Division of Emergency Management is to monitor social media during incidents and to put out good information. Somebody said somewhere, we never found out where the rumor started, after the earthquake, that another larger earthquake was going to happen. Some experts said a larger earthquake is going to happen in less than an hour, and we all needed to prepare for it. Excuse me. There's a lot of problems with that. One, you can never predict when an earthquake is going to happen, other than like this is the best you can predict an earthquake. We think sometime within the next 50 years, there's a 50-50 chance that we might get an earthquake greater than 5.0, possibly somewhere along the Wasatch Front. That's about as good as you can predict an earthquake. So to say it's going to be bigger and it's going to be happening in less than an hour, that was bogus. So again, be careful of your social media sources. Highway message boards, that's another one that you get. You often see those crash ahead, icy roads ahead, like you see in the picture there. You often see amber alerts on those as well. Another video.
Greetings, citizen. I am a courageous firefighter from your local community fire and rescue department. I am here to inform you that there is an imminent emergency or disaster in your neighborhood. It is necessary for you and your household to evacuate the premises within 30 minutes time. It is recommended that you leave the area heading west to the main highway. An evacuation shelter has been set up at the high school in the community to the north. Again, you have 30 minutes. This is your only warning. Be safe and good luck.
Okay, so that's kind of a silly example of route alerting. The emergency responders will go door to door, like in that, or they might just do loudspeakers from vehicles, just telling you quickly something is happening, you need to take immediate action. A lot of times route alerting is done when there's no time to send out any of the others on the EAS or the WIA or on social media. It's something that needs to happen right away. Usually this happens for evacuation. Now, something that's not going to be done by the city or state authorities is a text group. But this is a great way that you can set up now with your family, with those in your support group, excuse me. Set up something on your phone, a text group now, so that when an emergency happens, you don't have to put that group together and send out one message all at once. Hey, how are you? Is everybody safe? Yeah, you want to be able to just send that out very quickly and get responses very quickly. Another thing to think about with this, you want a text group. You don't want to be calling, especially in an emergency situation when phone lines are going to be iffy at best. A text only takes a moment, a split second to get that information through. Whereas a phone call, you have to make the connection and keep that connection for the duration of the call. That takes up a lot more bandwidth, and it'll be a lot harder for everybody else to get through if you're on the phone. So only use your phone for an emergency, and when you're going to do it, only text. Even more reliable than any of those is just basic face-to-face communication. It may be a little slower, but it's most reliable. If you've ever texted somebody and they didn't understand what you were saying because you were maybe being sarcastic or telling a joke, it's hard to get facial cues and inflection and all those kinds of things from texts, from notes, such kinds of things. So face-to-face communication is the most effective. It's a good idea to get to know and trust your neighbors, because you're probably going to be relying on each other in an emergency situation, using that face-to-face, eyes and ears communication. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about phones. A lot of times people say, oh, don't even think about your phone because it's not going to work. Are they going to work? Maybe, they might. If they do, they're a very valuable resource. Again, like we talked about, only use them if you have an emergency. Keep the phone lines clear. Remember to text, not to call. Don't say, I'm not even going to worry about my phone because it's probably not going to work. It's still your primary source of communication. So if your phone is working, part of your communication plan should be an out-of-state emergency contact. Remember, it's often easier to contact long distance because local phone lines and call towers are usually overwhelmed. Establish and practice using an out-of-state emergency contact. If you're not at home when the incident happens, all members of the household can text your out-of-state contact. Well, I say out-of-state. You can also just out of the area, out of the county, other end of the state, just a long distance call. So text the out-of-state contact, reports your status and location. Then, so little Billy, little Susie, they all contact Aunt Mabel in Denver. And then you can contact Aunt Mabel in Denver and see if little Susie and little Billy have contacted her and what their status is. Or she can contact you back and say, I heard from little Billy and little Susie. So you've got to set that up now. Let that other person know what their responsibilities are, and you can ask them to be your out-of-state contact, but then at the same time, volunteer to be their emergency contact as well. Other things you can do with your phone, of course, email, text, social media. We talked about those things already. Many neighborhoods have plans for, we call it a home emergency status program when conducting neighborhood checks. This allows emergency responders or sometimes block captains drive around the length of your street or walk around and determine at a quick glance the needs in the homes in the neighborhood. Residents need to keep contact papers in these 4 colors, green, yellow, red, black, near a front window, someplace that's clearly visible from the street. For a large-scale emergency, residents, they assess the situation and place the corresponding colored page or pages in the window of their home or business. Green means everything's okay. Red means help is needed. A life-threatening situation is occurring. Yellow means help is required but not critical or life-threatening. And of course, black is used if there is a death. Green shouldn't be used with any other color. Red and yellow shouldn't be used together, but either one could be used with black. What about two-way radios? We did talk a little bit about those. The FRS, GMRS. FRS stands for Family Radio Service. GMRS, General Mobile Radio Service. FRS, you can use that. You don't have to have a license. GMRS, you don't have to take a test to do that, but you do need to pay a small fee. And the only difference between the FRS and GMRS is just a little bit more powerful. So you just have to pay to have the legal right to use that. One thing I talked about before, remember, these radios, some of them claim to have 25-mile or more range, but that is line of sight. Mountains or just city landscape can block that. It's usually a mile or less. If you want to use your radios in your neighborhood, you might want to consider instead doing CB or ham. Ham is a great thing. You do have to have a license for it. It's not, I mean, I did it, so it's not that hard to do, to just get a basic tech license. But it's a good thing to learn how to do. It doesn't have to be that expensive, but it's a great resource in an emergency. Another thing some circumstances, the only option left is communication, handwritten notes, or face-to-face communication. You might just need to have people on foot or on bicycle going and doing that. And I've got a short little video talking about that. Welcome to the Be Ready Buzz. Oftentimes during disasters, one of the first things lost is communication. In our communities, cell towers and phone lines can be overwhelmed or damaged. Even radio communications could be difficult because so few people have reliable radio equipment. Face-to-face communication, though it's slow, it is the most reliable. If there's a large-scale disaster, be ready to walk.
The video isn't playing for us.
It's not playing?
Make sure you have the right bike for your size.
No.
Well, that's weird.
I see the video.
Oh, do you?
I do.
Yeah, I was playing it too.
It's
Yeah, I
playing.
see it. It's playing.
It's playing? Okay, maybe you just have a slow internet or something, so it's delayed.
On internet because it was choppy a little bit, so that's local.
Okay. I'll continue playing it. Can you at least hear it?
I don't know.
You don't hear it?
Heard
No.
it until it stopped.
Right. Okay. Let me keep playing it.
And keep it tuned up. Now, prepare and share what you learned about neighborhood communication with someone you care about. Thanks for joining us on the Be Ready Buzz.
Okay, basically, we're just talking about face-to-face communication, that bicycles may be one way that you can get around in your neighborhood for that. Okay, so that's some of the community and personal communication. Let's talk a little bit about wilderness emergency signaling. Now, does this seem like something that you're going to run into every day of your life? Probably not. But is it possible that you could be driving somewhere and be in a more rural area and something happens with your vehicle? You either break down or slide off the road? It's possible. That often happens to people when they're traveling. You hear stories about that every once in a while in the news. So we're not talking about you going into, I don't know, enemy territory or something and need to get emergency signaling, or Tom Hanks lost on a desert island. It might happen, but it's more likely that's a car breakdown or something like that. But let's talk about ways that you can signal. The whole idea is letting people know that you're in need of help. Help, here I am, come get me. That's the name of the game. You want to be seen and you want to be heard. What about shouting? Is that a good idea? Well, you're shouting, you can probably go for 15 minutes or something. That's probably your first line of what you're going to do, but the human voice doesn't really carry very, very far. And if you're injured or something, it's not a very good means of communicating. So don't rely on shouting for good wilderness communication.
Welcome to the Be Ready Buzz. A whistle's an important thing to have in your emergency kits and to carry with you at all times. Do you remember that scene in the Boat movie?
Yeah! I'm king of the world! Woo!
No, not that one. This one.
I'll never let go. Come back! Come back! Come back!
The sound of a whistle carries farther than the sound of a human voice. As long as you can breathe, you can blow a whistle. Remember, 3 blasts is the universal sign of distress. Now, prepare and share what you've learned about emergency whistles
with someone you care about. Thanks for joining us on the Be Ready Buzz. Emergency whistle. Just so you know, that was a remake. That was not the original clip from the movie. I know they're very close, but that was a remake. One thing I've carried with me for most of my life is just an emergency whistle. It's easy thing to just stick in your pocket. As long as you can breathe, you can always blow on a whistle. And it's tweet, tweet, tweet. The 3 blasts of a whistle, tweet, tweet, tweet. That's the universal signal of distress. In fact, 3 is the universal signal of distress. 3 flashes of a flashlight, of a mirror, 3 gunshots. It's SOS, that dash, 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 dot, 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 dash, 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 or vice versa. It's not save our ship or save our souls. It's just that universal series of 3. It just means distress. So remember, that's emergency whistle. Maybe you're stuck under some debris or something under some rubble because of an earthquake. Tap on a wall, tap on a piece of metal in series of 3. Same thing with fire or smoke. If you're lost out in the wilderness, build a signal fire. But more important than a signal fire, make 3 signal fires. Somebody flying overhead could look down and say, oh, look, must be cooking s'mores or something. But if you have them in a triangle in a series of 3, remember, a series of 3 is distress, and they go, uh-oh, somebody needs some help, and they can radio in that you need some help and give them your location. We talked about flashlight, same thing. Flash it at a passing airplane. Now, flashlight's not a laser pointer. Don't flash a laser pointer at an airplane, but you can shine a flashlight at an airplane. Flash, 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 flash. Probably easier than hitting the on-off button would be just putting your hand over the end of the flashlight. One thing, I said laser pointer. You can use a laser pointer for signaling if it is at night and search and rescue has the night vision goggles. They will see your laser like a big arrow pointing directly where you are. Do not point the laser at the aircraft. All you need to do is point it up, straight up, not in any aircraft, and they will be able to see you quite well. Okay. Ground sign, I was in Boy Scouts, and one of the merit badges was all about learning all sorts of ground sign. I could tell you, I don't remember any of it. I don't use it every day. I'm not going to use it. But all you really need to do is just very clearly help or SOS in big 12-foot block letters. Make sure there's a lot of contrast between the ground. So if it's like on snow, you can use branches or something else to do it. They've got to be really big, because even 12 foot from really high up in the sky is not very big. Make them really big. A mirror. It's amazing how far a reflected sunlight from a mirror or other kind of reflective material how bright it is. You can see it for miles and miles. I was in Boy Scouts. This time as an adult leader, we took some scouts up to the top of Mount Timpanogos, and we told the families, okay, at 12 o'clock, we're going to be signaling with mirrors from the Mount of Timpanogos down to where you are. If you want to signal back up to us, get a little mirror and flash us. So there was signal flashing from Orem back up to Mount Timpanogos and back, and it was really bright. And of course, one of the dads had a really big mirror down in Orem, and he was using that to signal to the people up on Mount Timpanogos, and we were communicating by cell phone as well. And we'd say, hey, whoa, that's really, really bright, too bright, put that one away. But, miles and miles difference, and we could very easily see that reflected sunlight. So a mirror is a great thing, or even just something reflective, a great thing to have for emergency signaling.
Now we just need your wife's contact number.
Speed dial 1. Welcome to the Be Ready Buzz. Unfortunately, ever since I got my first mobile phone, I've stopped memorizing phone numbers. And I would guess that many of us are in the same boat. We need to keep copies of important names, addresses, phone numbers, and emails in our disaster supply kits, but it's also a good idea to keep that information with you in your wallet or purse, your vehicle, and even in your desk or your locker at work. That way, if your mobile stops working, you'll still be able to contact those important people. Now, Be Ready Utah, we have a downloadable card that you can print out, fill out, and put copies in those important places. And the link is in the description below. Now, prepare and share what you've learned. Okay, it's not in the link below, but you can go to bereadyutah.gov and get that downloadable card. Okay, this isn't wilderness information, but we're just talking about that. Organize that contact information and have it in your emergency kits. I don't even remember my wife's phone number. I know, I'm really sorry to say, but I do have it written down in my wallet. Of course, it's in my phone, but my smartphone that I kind of call my stupid phone because it's made me stupid. I have it written down in other places if in case I need it. So you want to have phone numbers, addresses, emails, websites, any emergency information you want to put that in your disaster supply kits, keep it in your wallet, your purse, wherever you might need that information. Well, if my phone's not working, then why do I need that information? I won't be able to contact. Maybe somebody else's phone is working. Maybe you could get to a landline. Maybe you can get onto a computer and go to an email or something like that. So here's your to-do list for the things that we've talked about tonight. Learn local sources for emergency information and the communication plan. Do you know the communications plan for not only your city, but maybe your neighborhood, for your work, for your children's school? Do you know it for maybe even your church? Organize and practice your household communication plan. Practice your out-of-state contact. Tell your out-of-state contact, hey, we're going to give it a try. See if little Billy and little Susie know how to contact Aunt Hildegard or whoever I said lives in Denver. Practice your text group as well. Say, hey, everybody on this list, please just give me a thumbs up reply to let me know this is just a test of our text group. Organize your contact information, the thing we just talked about. That's always changing. So make sure you update it every 6 months. People's emails change, people's phone numbers change. Sometimes their addresses change. So make sure you keep it updated. Communication supplies in all emergency kits. Learn how to use the things in that. You might have a really cool radio that has all sorts of functions. If you don't even know how to turn the dang thing on or how to tune it, it's not going to do you any good. Don't leave the batteries in it either. They tend to corrode and it'll destroy your device. So store the batteries outside of the device. Check it every 6 months to make sure it functions. Teach children how and when to call emergency numbers. Post those numbers by landlines. If anybody even has landlines anymore, make sure that they know how to call 911 or other emergency numbers on the mobile phones. We hear stories all the times about young children that save a parent or save a friend because they knew how to call 911. Teach your kids not to be scared to call 911, but that they should only call it in an emergency, not for help with their homework, but only when there's a life-threatening emergency. I would ask you, earlier I did post in there a sign up for the Be Ready Utah newsletter. Again, we put out information every month. We're going to be putting out one for March here in a few days. Encourage you to sign up for that. One thing I want you to remember, In a disaster, you don't rise to the occasion, you sink to your level of preparedness. Now, as I said, communication is usually one of the first things lost in an emergency. You need to have backup plans. You need to have not just for communications, but if your family is unable to communicate, do you have plans of how you're going to get back together? Make sure you have those things in place beforehand and that they're practiced. I hope that when a disaster strikes, your level of preparedness that you sink to is a very high level of preparedness and not one that you're going to just have a bunch of regrets. Okay. BeReadyUtah.gov. That's our website. I encourage you to go there. Lots of great information on emergency communication and a lot of other things. I am right at 6:45. I hit it right on the dot. So I think I'm done. Thank you very much for inviting me.
That's great. Great presentation as always, Bryan. Thank you so much.
Do we have any questions?
I always thought it would be a good idea to bury a little note keeping, something watertight with a notebook and a pencil in it, and have the family know, or maybe a neighbor or someone know that you put a note there. Because if you've evacuated and they're coming to look for you in a disaster, it might be nice before they go into a wrecked house or damaged home that they just see that little note and you tell them where you've gone.
Okay. Yeah, not a bad idea. Another good thing along with that, part of our Make a Plan presentation is having 2 meeting places for your home. One that's like a couple houses down or across the street. That would be like for house evacuation for fire. The other one's a few miles away, where if your neighborhood is evacuated, everybody knows to meet there, wherever that is, specific, like the Wendy's that's just on the outside of town, something like that. So it's good to have those alternate meeting places where if your family's not able to communicate, you know where to go.
And especially on vacation, if you've kind of, you're all going a different way and you're in Hawaii or whatever. We had a hurricane while we were there one year. And if you just said, well, we're all going to meet at this particular place if we get separated.
I have a question. Bryan, my name is Linda Milne. I'm with the Utah Commission on Aging. And is there anything special that we have to do to make, to use links to the BRU library and the Buzz series, et cetera, to make that available to our membership?
No, it's all public. I mean, your tax money paid for it, so it's all public access. Any of the information on Be Ready Utah, feel free to download it. We encourage you, please download your taxpayer money paid for it already. Download it, use it, send it out to all your friends and family. Even if they live outside of Utah, you can still do that.
Okay, that's great.
Do that, and then all of our videos, we have links from our videos to YouTube, but you can just go directly to YouTube and look up Be Ready Utah, and they're all on there as well. And they're an easy thing to grab the URL and share it in an email or a social media post as you'd like.
Yes. My second question is, are you going to expand the Buzz series? It is so successful and so easy to teach from.
We are, maybe. We've had a lot of changes here at Be Ready Utah. I'm actually the only Be Ready Utah person left. Many of our people retired, and because of budget, I'm the only one left. So we'll see. We do have some other things that we're working on. A lot of our presentations, because again, I'm the only one left. We're recording them, and we're going to be making those available for the general public to be able to use as well.
That means
yes.
Ken's gone and James is gone. James Ray.
James is still here, but he's moved into another section.
Oh, all right. Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? I saw some things about ham radio. I'm Kilo Echo 7 Uniform India Kilo.
Nice. Yeah, I put a message out on the chat asking if we had any ham radio operators here tonight, and there's a lot.
Excellent.
Yeah, there's a lot. If you would please email me at info@tacda.org. I'd love to get to know you and get your ham radio signs.
I know what that, even though I know my call sign, I haven't used it in a while. It is a skill that is perishable. Get in with an emergency, it doesn't even have to be emergency preparedness, just a ham radio group in your area so that you are constantly in the practice of using it. There's many UCARES, I know, as Utah County. I forget what it stands for, but it's Utah County Emergency. That's something that if you want to get emergency specific, you can contact groups in your area.
That's great.
Bryan, I do have a question with Starlink in Western North Carolina. Starlink was so useful in Western North Carolina when everything went down. And
Definitely.
so all those alerts and these systems that have been built up over 50, 60 years for the telecos, all the telephone companies, and for cell phones, does that also apply to Starlink, or that's something that needs to be done?
I at this point, don't quote me on this, but I don't think at this point that they're connected. You're talking about the WIA, the wireless emergency alerts,
right? Yeah, I don't think they are, which is why I wanted to ask
right.
you, because I think that's a gap that needs to
Yes.
be taken care of.
And that's one of the things because the Starlink and other satellite radios are relatively new. I mean, it's not new technology, but it's somewhat new, and it's still cost prohibitive for the majority of the public to be able to use it.
Right.
They haven't done it as much because not as many people use it. Excuse me.
What got me thinking about it is in Western North Carolina, 3 weeks after Helene, another horrible storm came through. And at that time, police, firefighters, EMTs, regular people, churches, they were all relying on Starlink because that's the only thing that was up and running. And so all those other alerts that have, over the years, they've been built into our phones. I'm wondering, and it occurred to me it's probably not on Starlink yet. And so
now one thing you could do with Starlink, there are, I know each of the counties, each of the regions in Utah has their own emergency alerting system. I know Everbridge is a very common one. I think Code Red is another one. You could sign up for those. And this is something that I actually neglected to share in the presentation tonight. Check with your county and see what's your emergency communication system, whatever it is. You need to sign up for that one. And you could be on the other side of the planet, and as long as you're on that list, as long as you have phone connection, you will get that alert. And that should work with Starlink because it's just a phone number.
Okay, but it's not automatic. That's my point. It's, if there's 70-mile-an-hour winds coming through and you get that alert, I do anyway. And it occurred to me, okay, on Starlink, I don't think you would get that.
You should get that one because if Starlink, it's just as if you're using a phone number, isn't it?
I don't know. I tried it for a week and I couldn't get a good signal, so I returned it.
Okay.
I wish I could have used it, but
yeah, I think as long as it's just a phone number, it wouldn't get the wireless emergency alerts. But this one where you're putting your phone number in, you should be able to, as long as you have connection, you should get that emergency alert.
Right. Okay. That's good.
Okay. Any other questions?
Actually, I have a question. Do you happen to have a preferred FRS or GMRS radio brand?
One that you can afford that's the best.
Yeah.
That really is the best that I can say for that. If you're putting yourself into debt to prepare for an emergency, not a good plan. So for whether it's radios, whether it's water filters, emergency weather alert radios. Buy the best one that you can get. Do some research on it, find out recommendations, but do the best one that you can afford.
Okay.
Is that an easy cop-out answer?
Yeah, it is. I think that you mentioned that they only work with line of sight. Is that true for the
Not only
FRS?
to get that full 25 or 35 mile thing, that's line of sight. It can bounce off mountains and buildings, but that really reduces the amount of signal. I tried it once. I've got a radio that says 25-mile range, and I drove away from my house. My wife had the other one at home. We were talking on cell phone. Excuse me, talking on cell phone and on the radio at the same time, and we were about 2 miles out. She couldn't hear anything, and this was just in town, and it was about a mile before she could hear anything.
Wow. Well, that's a bummer.
Well, it's just to know the limitations of that. I know there's a lot of neighborhoods that are relying on those for their neighborhood communication, and I don't think they've tested them out.
That's not much better than just a walkie-talkie.
Oh, they essentially are a souped-up walkie-talkie, right?
Yeah. Okay, so if you live in a mountainous area like we do, or a hilly region, then it's probably not the best option.
Test it out. That's what I would recommend.
What would be the next best option then?
In terms of radio?
In terms of a radio that could reach you, over a mountain.
You can try ham. See if you've got repeaters that'll work for that. Yeah, somebody said GMRS. GMRS is more powerful than the FRS. Okay. Ham is even more powerful than that. You might need to have repeaters. If you've got the budget and your group is able to do that, Starlink's a great option. You might be reduced down to the bicycle or on foot for communication.
Okay, so the GMRS is better than the FRS in terms of being able to reach.
It's more powerful, yes.
And there is no test for the GMRS?
Nope, you just pay a little fee.
Okay.
I think it's a yearly fee. If anybody knows better than me on that, I think it's just yearly.
Bryan?
Yo.
Yeah, this is Tony. I'm GMRS and ham radio. GMRS is a family license, and it's $35 for 10 years.
Oh, 10 years. Good to know. Thank you.
And if you get a GMRS radio, get one that you can program in repeaters, because repeaters are the key to getting over the mountain or bouncing the signal off of a repeater on a mountain. Very important to look at. And preferably get your ham radio license, but that's a bias that I have with 30-some years of having one, but very useful. But GMRS, make sure you can plug in a repeater. That's becoming more important. Here in California, specifically Sonoma County, we now have several repeaters set up in the county to help facilitate communications. And we also have a lot of ham radio.
Excellent. Thank you, Tony. I learned something tonight, so thank you.
You're welcome.
So just a question, Tony, you're from California. How big is this group? I assumed it was Utah based, but I guess, are you all over the country?
GMRS, yes, it is. You can go to a website, I believe it is My GMRS, and you can look up the town that you're from or the county and get information on any repeaters that might be available. GMRS has grown exponentially. We used to have a CERT group, and we tested out the FRS radios, and exactly what you said, about a mile away, and that's as far as you get. And the GMRS radios, you can actually hook on a mobile antenna to one, and you have about 5 watts. And then if you have a mobile, you can have up to 50 watts. So it's a good alternative. And if you have a large family, great because you can give all the kids the radios, the wife, the husband, the mother-in-law. The family can use them as a family unit under the same license. So that makes it a lot more affordable also over the long term.
Okay, thanks, Tony. Roseanne, I was the question I meant was this group of preparedness individuals. Is it from all over the country?
Yes, it is.
Okay, all right. I thought it was Utah.
Oh, no.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks for the information, Tony. It would be nice to hear from you if you could email me.
Okay, good. And info at TACDA.org.
That's right.
Okay, good. I'll ship out an email to you. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Any more questions?
Any other questions?
Someone's asking, how do I get on the HQ net radio testing? Does anybody know the answer to that? I don't know what that is.
I can't answer that. I don't know.
Right, sorry, we don't know how to answer that one. Maybe someone else can. It's a ham radio net hosted by a station from Utah on 7.27 MHz, plus or minus.
There is a lot of information on ham radio groups. If you just want to do a Google search, that's a great way to find out a lot of this information.
And the TACDA website has an excellent ham radio tab and section. So if they go to TACDA.org as well.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Bryan.
And the 7.270 megahertz, that would be 40 meters. You need a general license to be able to get on that net, it looks like. So take a look at it and utilize your internet and do some searching on it. And there's also, in the ham radio world, there's also repeater logbooks that you can take a look at, and most of those are online these days. So utilize that as much as you can.
Just in closing here real quick, could I do a request and everybody just put which state you're in? Just in the chat? Just so I get an idea of how broad this meeting is.
Yeah, awesome.
Oh.
Great question.
That's great.
Fantastic.
All over the country.
Canada.
Okay. Well, this reach was much further than I was thinking. Okay.
Yes.
I hope we don't get a lot of hurricanes here in Utah, but I hope the information that I shared was applicable for everybody.
Yes.
Thanks again for having me.
I'm sure it will be applicable for everybody. It will be far reaching and it will be on YouTube later. So it's very valuable information. Thank you so much, Bryan. It's so nice to have you again. We hope to have you again in the future, and I hope you feel better.
Yeah, it just came on the last night.
Hope we didn't wear out your voice.
I'll be good.
All right. Thanks for coming, everybody. I'm going to end the meeting now. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Roseanne.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. Bye-bye.
Thank you.